Good morning, friends and enemies. We're diving into the running backs for week 16 of fantasy football, bucketing every single one of them, every fantasy relevant one of them, into the must start, strong start, dub flex, L flex, or cone category. We did the wide receiver version of this yesterday. So if you missed that, check it out. It was a long one. It was a good one. A lot of tidbits that might help you out for the running back video. All right, this one's going to be much quicker as the running backs usually are, but we'll dive into Thursday Night Football for tonight's game. We've got Denver in LA. LA slightly favored by about a field goal, 42-point over under. I mean, the best part about doing the running back video, because it goes so quick, we could just say things like Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal are cones as far as it is related for fantasy football. On the flip side, Denver's a little bit of fuckery going on in the backfield, as it always is. I think a lot of this will depend on whether or not Jaleel McLaughlin plays. If he plays, then everybody's a cone to me, because you have absolutely no idea who's going to be the running back that produces in a Sean Payton backfield. I will say, though, Jaleel McLaughlin was a DNP on Monday. He returned to a limited practice on Tuesday, which does actually bode well for him playing on Thursday. If he does not play, I would throw Javonte Williams into the dub flex category, okay? Aldrich Estimate would still be a cone, but I do think that means Javonte would take over as the workhorse here and play a lot on passing down snaps. So, Javonte, dub flex. If Jaleel plays, we're not playing anybody. Moving on to Houston and Kansas City. Now, again, we talked about this in depth on yesterday's preview. We'll have a better picture by the time you guys end up watching this video. I'm filming this on Wednesday morning at around 10:30 a.m. So probably a full 24 hours before you actually watch this. We have a lot of guys in the office traveling for the holidays, so editing needed to be done a little bit beforehand. So I apologize if any of the injuries end up coming bite us in the ass from what I'm talking about right now. The way Vegas has moved it, they had Houston as field goal favorites in the beginning of the week, saying that Patrick Mahomes likely not playing. They have KC as field goal favorites now, which points towards Patrick Mahomes playing. Obviously, that matters for the offense. For Houston, Joe Mixon's been a little bit, bad over the last week or so in terms of fantasy. That is because their offense can really get nothing going. Juice Scruggs looks like he's going to be out again. Their offensive line has had struggles. They run the ball on first and second down like every fucking time. They have the worst efficiency in the NFL doing that. Like, it's bad, but Joe Mixon has been good enough with crazy ceiling games that he's obviously a must-start. You're not sitting him in your fantasy playoffs. On the flip side, Kareem Hunt's a cone. Pacheco, again, getting some work, but same hesitations that I've had last week and the week before that. He'll be an L flex for me. Houston is a good run defense. Both of these teams have very good run defenses. So it makes it difficult to, predict any success for the running backs here. But with Pacheco, I do think he'll probably get the goal line work if they get down there. If Mahomes is out, this is obviously going to be a team that probably struggles to move the ball quite a bit and just won't be a lot of efficiency for the team. But Pacheco, he hasn't shown real upside. I still think he's dealing with the injury and coming back from it and getting his legs under him. So he'd be an L flex for me. We got Pittsburgh. We got Baltimore. Baltimore, 6-point favorites on Saturday as well. 44.5-point total. Both very good run defenses. I think this game completely relies on whether or not George Pickens plays and whether or not TJ Watt plays. Both of them were DMPs on Tuesday. So we'll have to see what happens Wednesday, Thursday for the injury reports. If Pickens is out, this offense has absolutely no explosion to it. Baltimore's run defense is really, really good, as you can see on the bottom there. Third in run D rank per PFF. Steelers are fourth. EPA per rush, we have Baltimore at 3, Pittsburgh at 4. Fantasy points per game allowed to the running back. Baltimore 7th fewest, Pittsburgh 10th fewest. So really good ground games here. For Baltimore, though, of course, you're just starting Derrick Henry, despite the fact that he's looked a little bit gassed over the last, week, 2 weeks, whatever. Doesn't matter. December, Derrick Henry is someone that is in every lineup of yours, of course. On the flip side, you got Najee and you got Jalen Warren. Najee coming off of one of the worst games he's ever had last week. I kind of think that continues. Again, if they don't have George, I feel better about Najee, a lot better if they have Pickens and are capable of making explosive plays. I will also say what I said in yesterday's video. Baltimore's secondary has become a lot stronger over the last month of the season. They're finally getting it together. Crazy that you see that happen with well-coached teams. They get better as the season progresses because they understand what works and they make changes and fine-tunage to the personnel. George Pickens doesn't play. I have so little faith in this offense doing anything here. Najee, I'm hesitant to even label him as a dub flex. I think Najee would be an L flex for me. Jalen Warren at the very bottom of that tier as well. Moving to Cleveland and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, 7.5-point favorites, 47-point over under. In this one, Cleveland's going to be starting DTR, which makes me super fucking nervous about everybody in Cleveland's backfield. I think Jerome Ford, I really like Jerome Ford with Nick Chubb out. I'm going to put him into the dub flex category just because I have huge concerns about the overall offense if they're going to get into scoring opportunities. So Jerome Ford should get a ton of volume, should catch some passes, will be the goal line back if they get down there, but he's capable of breaking off a big play anytime he's given the opportunity, which is what we saw last week over a 60-yard touchdown run. So Jerome Ford is going to be a dub flex for me. On the flip side, Chase Brown must start, of course. Arizona, Carolina. Arizona 4.5-point favorites. Carolina at home 47-point total. I think both sides of this are very, very clear. James Conner is shaping up to be a league winner with Benson hurt, Amari DiMarcado on the IR, Conner coming off of his best game of the season probably last week. I think he just keeps it rolling against the best matchup, the single best matchup you could have in fantasy football. James Conner must start. Chuba coming off a down game, but volume's going to be there. Efficiency will bounce back against Arizona. He's also a must start. Philly and Washington. Philly 3.5-point favorites here. On the road in Washington, 45.5-point total. Of course, Saquon is a must start. Unless it comes out that, he's going to be limited or something, because he did say he was dealing with some kind of injury, and we saw a little bit more Kenneth Gainwell than comfortable with. I will say, if you're in a deeper league maybe, and the Jerome Fords and the Kendrays and those types of guys are not available on the waiver wire, and you're a Saquon owner, it might be worth stashing Kenneth Gainwell if you got an extra spot or so, just on the off chance that, something happens throughout the week. But Saquon must start, of course. On the Washington side of things, of course, McNichols and Chris Rodriguez are cones. Brian Robinson, not his best game last week, hasn't been playing great recently, and gets a really, really tough matchup against Philly. Despite that, though, I still think, Washington is capable of putting up big points. Philly's got a good defense, but they're going to have to score to get there. I think B-Rob will be a dub flex that I feel pretty good about having in my flex spot if that's where I put him. Giants and Atlanta. Penn State's starting 8.5-point faves, 41-point total. I'm going to throw Bijan into must start, I will say, because the game script is so good. Tyler Algier will be in the L flex category for me. L flex, again, means he's a flex-worthy player for me. Don't feel great about it, but Algier in these types of game scripts where I think they dominate, no Dexter Lawrence, 8.5-point favorites, Algier will get 10-plus carries in this one. So Algier will be an L flex for me. I think you can if you need to. On the New York Giants side of things, it's not great. Like, Atlanta's defense isn't good, but we are a pretty good run defense. We don't allow a lot of fantasy points to running backs. We don't allow explosive plays to running backs, which is kind of what Tyrone Tracy is. And obviously, we saw Singletary get some goal line work last week. We've seen him split with Devin Singletary pretty clearly. Singletary's a cone for me. Tracy's actually going to fall into the L flex category for me. I just don't trust this offense. I don't trust them to have scoring opportunities. I don't trust the split that we're seeing right now. Maybe he's hitting that rookie wall. He hasn't played running back this is like his second full season playing running back ever. It's a long season for college running backs transitioning into the NFL. Could be like, remember Dameon Pierce's rookie year where he was so good, and then the end of the year he kind of just fell off because he wasn't prepared for the big workload that the NFL season makes you be prepared for. So Tyrone Tracy is going to be an L flex for me. Can flex him, but I don't feel great about him. Tennessee, Indianapolis. Indy, 3.5-point favorites at home, 42.5-point total here. I know JT let y'all down last week. If you lost by like 7 points, that was the swing of him fumbling instead of scoring the touchdown, but JT is a must-start for me regardless. Tennessee, on the flip side, still some stuff up in the air here, right? You have Tajay Spears, who had a monster game last week. You had Tony Pollard, who rolled up, still had 17 carries, but rolled up on his ankle, which he was dealing with throughout practice the entire week. So we'll have to wait on practice reports. If Tony Pollard ends up playing, they both get a little bit dicey here. I still think Pollard's probably a dub flex for me. Tajay Spears turns into the L flex category for me. They'll have Mason Rudolph under center, so I trust the offense a little bit more here. Indy's run defense is a little bit worse than its pass defense, but overall I think they're a little bit better of a defense than giving credit for on the year on both sides of things, pass and run. So I'm not like overly excited about Tony Pollard, but if he plays, he typically gets to work when he plays. If Tony Pollard misses this game, right, like his ankle swelled up, and he just ends up not playing at all, Tajay Spears is going to be on the borderline of strong start and must start for me. Like, he's a pass catcher. He's explosive. He scores touchdowns. They give him the ball on the goal line when Tony Pollard is not playing. So I think he'll catch 5 to 6 passes. He's used very heavily in the passing game. So I think he's as close to a must start as any player that I'd put in the strong start category. Moving down, we got Detroit. We got Chicago. This gets interesting here. David Montgomery's out for the season. Jahmyr Gibbs, probably the number 1 overall running back this week in fantasy. You're not playing any other two. Craig Reynolds, Vaki, like, I might stash Craig Reynolds if I'm in a very deep league, but they're both cones for this matchup. Like, the one thing that is going for Detroit is that their offensive line is staying completely healthy, and they got a great matchup against Chicago here. On the flip side, DeAndre Swift came off a pretty good game, got a lot of volume. I still think a lot of that is predicated on the fact that Roschon Johnson was out again with concussion. If he comes back, this turns DeAndre Swift into a high volume but kind of gross flex play. Detroit is obviously not the run defense that they were just a few weeks ago because of the injuries to Aleem McNeil. Now their top run defender on the line is out for the season with the ACL tear. No Aiden Hutchinson, Malcolm Rodriguez, Alex Anzalone, Carlton Davis, Ennis Rakestraw. IRs galore. So Swift for me, hate it, but he's going to be a dub flex. Roschon will be a cone for me. Rams, New York. Rams 3.5-point faves in New York. Good matchup for both sides, I think. Kyron Williams is a must-start, of course. The volume is just insane. He's getting like 30 touches per game. For the Jets, last week, Breece Hall was kind of a surprise active after dealing with the knee injury, but he was active and he did lead the backfield. When we talk about touches, 9 carries for him, 30 yards. He did get the touchdown at the end that kind of saved your day. Isaiah Davis, 5 carries, 24 yards. Braylon Allen, only 2 carries there. I believe he got banged up a little bit, but I think Davis has also kind of passed him in the pecking order for the backfield. Especially in game scripts that aren't like, up by 20 points or anything like that. Breece Hall, 2 targets. Davis, a target. Braylon Allen, 0 targets. In terms of snaps, Breece played 49%. Isaiah Davis played 40%. And they both ran 44% of the routes out of the backfield. So it wasn't really as drastic of a split as maybe you might think about, based on the box score, etc. So I think when I look at this backfield, like if Braylon Allen's playing, then it gets super, super messy. And I don't feel comfortable really with any of them. Breece Hall, maybe another week healthier. I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category. My heart kind of tells me L flex because I don't feel good about it. Davis and Braylon Allen, I'm not playing. They're going to be cones for me as long as Breece Hall is active. But I will say Breece Hall, I'd be very hesitant to. He's bordering between dub flex and L flex because he's not making big plays. This offense is throwing the ball a lot now, having much more success through the air than on the ground. He's not really catching that many passes. All the targets seem to be going to Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. So going to be a dub flex for me, but again, pretty hesitant there. Minnesota and Seattle. Minnesota in Seattle, 3.5-point faves, 42.5-point total here. Aaron Jones, this is a great matchup against Seattle's run defense, who they've gotten better, but they're still not a scary matchup by any means for any running back. So Aaron Jones is going to be a very strong start for me. Catches passes, explosive, scores touchdowns, etc. Seattle's tricky, man, because Kenneth Walker's still dealing with the calf injury. They said they came out afterwards and, they were talking about how they wanted to run the ball a lot more. Now, all depends on Kenneth Walker playing or not playing. We don't have any injury updates. Again, I'm filming this on Wednesday morning, so we don't have any practice reports yet. I would put it at 50-50 if Kenneth Walker plays. He was doubtful last week, didn't really practice at all, so I still think there's a chance he misses this game as well. If that's the case, Charbonnet is going to be a very strong start for me. Had a bad game last week. Minnesota's run defense is elite, as you could see. Run D rank per PFF, number 2. EPA per run rank, number 1. Fantasy points per game allowed to the running back position, number 3. But I don't want to overemphasize Sharp's one bad game because he had an incredible ceiling game the week before that. So he's going to be on the borderline of strong start and must start for me if Kenneth Walker is out. If Kenneth Walker plays, man, I have very little faith in Kenneth Walker. He's going to be an L flex for me. I think Sharp would be a dub flex for me. I would play Sharp over Kenneth Walker. I don't feel like Kenneth Walker's going to get anywhere near a full workload, and I think Sharp has worked his way into having a good workload with a limited Kenneth Walker. New England and Buffalo. As weird as it sounds, man, I think there are 5 playable running backs in this matchup. You have Buffalo as 2 touchdown favorites at home, 46-point total. Neither of these run defenses are good, and I think the game script kind of dictates a lot of running backs playing. Last week, James Cook dominated Detroit. James Cook is a must-start, of course. Great matchup, great player, great environment going on here. Behind him, we see Ray Davis and Ty Johnson get heavily involved in games where there's a lot of points scored and they run a lot of plays and they dominate the other teams. So I actually think both Ray Davis and Ty Johnson can go into the L flex category because as 14-point favorites, you'd imagine that they're going to get up big and utilize their running backs quite often. And they're fucking just big play guys. So I like both of those guys as L flexes. On the flip side, they'll probably try to get Ramondre going. We saw Antonio Gibson get involved last week. So I think both of them are playable. Like Gibson gets a lot of passing down work, especially when they're down. So Gibson would be an L flex for me. I would probably play, when they're 14-point underdogs, it's going to turn into a game script game real quick. Ramondre is a good pass catcher, though. So I'm actually going to put both Ramondre and Gibson also in the L flex category. I will put Ramondre as the number one amongst all these guys. I would probably rank it Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, Antonio Gibson in that order. Moving down to San Fran and Miami. We've got Miami as 1-point favorites at home versus San Fran, 44.5-point total. I think a lot of this is going to depend on whether, or actually, it really won't depend on the tackles. Miami was without both of their starting tackles last week, which was a huge problem against the Houston pass rush, led to zero consistency on the ground, zero upside, but all of Achane's upside is come through the air anyways. He's a must start. Of course, you're never sitting him in your fantasy playoffs. On the flip side, San Francisco, the only guy that you can roll out is Isaac Guerrero. I think coming off of, the huge touch game, he wasn't efficient because he was banged up, but now you have another 10 or 11 days of rest here. I feel good about Isaac Guerrero, and I think he's not a must start for me. I don't even know that I feel super comfortable about him being a strong start. He'll get the role. He'll get the volume. It's not a great matchup. Miami's run defense has actually been pretty good this year. So I'm going to label him a dub flex, but a dub flex that I feel really, really good about. He'll be at the top of the tier in the dub flex category. Moving on to Jacksonville and Las Vegas. LV -1, 39.5 points over under. With Jacksonville, they've just gone completely hot hand in the backfield. 1 week it's Tank, 1 week it's Travis Etienne. Las Vegas matchup is great. No Max Crosby there, but in your fantasy playoffs, I'm not really trying to rely on either one of these guys. I think, if we want to just go off last week, then Travis Etienne is the guy there. They're both going to be L flexes for me because you just can't possibly predict who's going to have the good game, who's going to have big plays, who's going to score the touchdowns, what the game script is going to be. So wouldn't want either of them in my lineup. They're both L flexes. On the flip side, Sincere McCormick was supposed to take over while Zamir White was on the IR. He ended up hurting his ankle quickly in that game. Looks like he's probably going to be ruled out against Jacksonville in this one. Great matchup for Alexander Mattison. However, I don't think Alexander Madison is going to have the role. Like Madison had, about a month span earlier on in the season where he was like a low-end RB2, and I felt pretty good about him, especially in PPR leagues, because he monopolized like all the work. But we've seen Amir Abdullah get really involved in the Las Vegas offense recently and take over the full pass-catching workload. So Alexander Madison, I think he's going to be usable because Amir White's out. Sincere McCormick's probably out. So it's like very, very condensed in terms of where the backfield is going to go. Madison's going to be an L flex for me. I don't feel good about him, but I think he'll probably end up getting 12 to 15 touches. And if this offense could do anything, he'll get the goal line work. That also becomes a problem because if Aiden O'Connell is not back, then they have Desmond Ridder again, and you fucking see what happens when Desmond Ridder's under center against an Atlanta defense. They can't even move the ball. So if Desmond Ridder's under center, I don't want to start anybody here. If Aiden O'Connell's under center, I think Madison's an L flex. You can flex. You're not going to feel good about it, though. Tampa Bay and Dallas. Tampa, -4 against Dallas. Dallas, shiv of a run defense. 48-point total. Tampa Bay's offense is incredible. I think Bucky and Rashad White are both very, very strong starts. On the Dallas side of things, Rico Dowdle has been as good as any running back over the last month of the season. He's been super, super, super good. I just feel weird saying at any point that Rico Dowdle is a must start, so I'm also just going to throw him into the strong start category. And since they're all in the strong start category, how would I rank them? Ooh, that's so tough. They're all such good starts. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to lean with the talent of Bucky over Rashad White. Rashad White scored in like 9 straight games, but I still think Bucky's better. I think he gives you a better ceiling, and I think that's what I'm looking for in my fantasy semifinals. Hopefully he's a little bit healthier than last week, but he still had a very good game last week. Was able to show explosiveness and upside, had an over 50-yard rush at one point. So I'm going to go Bucky 1. I'm going to go Rico 2, and I'm going to go Rashad White 3. But to me, they're all pretty much in the same tier where it's like they're all very, very strong starts, and I would feel great about any of them in my lineup right now. Moving now to Monday Night Football, the last game of the week. We've got Green Bay at home as 2 touchdown favorites against New Orleans. We should see a little bit of snow here. We should see a very cold game in Lambeau. Josh Jacobs is, of course, a must start. On the other side of things, Kamara likely to miss this game. He's got the groin injury. It's possible he plays. If he plays, you're going to put Kamara in your lineup, obviously. If he doesn't play, we should expect a huge dosage of Kendre Miller. However, like the game script, Kendre Miller is an early down, shifty, one-cut bruiser back is how I'd describe him. He's not a pass catcher. He could be in the right place, right time, and catch like 2 or 3 passes in this game. I don't expect him to do much for it. He's not going to be a Kamara type. They're not going to run screens and wheel routes for him often. Based on game script, like they're not going to get up and give Kendre Miller 18 carries. They're so banged up. Spencer Rattler under center. I think Kendre Miller is a dub flex, but more in like the middle to lower part of that tier. He's not someone I'm like, hell yeah, like dub flex, can't wait to get him in my lineup type beat. But you could do worse because I think if they can keep this game within reach, like if they're not down 2 touchdowns the entire game, maybe not until the fourth quarter, I expect a heavy dosage of Kendrick Miller. I expect a minimum touch floor of like 12, probably up to 15 if Kamara is out. They don't get Jamal Williams involved. They don't get anybody involved in that backfield besides him. He's looked good on the ground, scoring some touchdowns, like high efficiency. Really liked him coming out of TCU. He's a good player, and they're ready to get him more involved with the new coaching staff. Obviously, we've seen that. So all hinges on Kamara. Obviously, if Kamara plays, you play him. If he doesn't, Kendrick Miller, decent flex play, okay matchup. Weather, game script, like just chewing the clock down, though, I could see the Packers running, 60% more plays than the New Orleans Saints. So I will leave it at that. That is the running back preview for Week 16. Good luck in your semifinals. If you missed the wide receiver version, I will link that right up here at the end screen. You can just click on it, go to that. I love you for hanging out. I'll see y'all on Saturday for the private live stream. Smoochies.